Tech has a problem. AI needs power. Lots of it. The solution? A nuclear renaissance. On May 22nd, the most innovative nuclear companies meet the investors who will power our future at the Dealflow Discovery Day on nuclear energy, hosted by Dealflow Events.
So I got into deep isolation because I felt like we have to make progress on solving the nuclear waste problem, specifically the nuclear waste disposal problem. But as deep isolation got going and as we got closer and closer to really solving that problem and to having customers all around the world, something else became of increasing concern to me, and this was cost. And I started to worry that even if we are able to solve the nuclear waste disposal problem, it's not clear to me we're going to be able to have the level of nuclear resurgence that I believe we need because nuclear is too expensive. And many of your listeners might know is that the reason nuclear power is expensive is fundamentally because of the construction costs. So I think there's a lot of interesting innovations happening right now. How do we reduce that cost? And we see some companies taking a manufacturing approach by mass manufacturing, and we see other companies trying to use new materials that maybe don't require the same levels of pressure. But what Deep Fission has recognized is that when you're in a borehole a mile underground, you already have the conditions that you need to replace that construction.
Our design is unique in the sense that we don't have any liquids that can slosh around. The high temperature gas reactor design allows us to rapidly start up and rapidly shut down without having latent heat problems of liquid metal or molten salt. So the technology is really there for that mobile design. The moderator we're using is pretty lightweight. And then we have a shielding that's proprietary technology. You have your traditional primary shielding, but the secondary shielding that we're using really helps lighten the design as well. And when we set those target goals, the objective goals, like I said, being able to load in a truck or a helicopter in the back of a C-130 and really move around the wherever power is needed. I think we're delivering unprecedented heat and scale to remote off-grid locations. And it's more than just the power and the heat. We're offering a suite of capabilities. We're designing to be a modular system of systems and actually teaming with industry partners that can do atmospheric water generation, desalination. We can do wastewater treatment. And all of these capabilities, we're talking with partners about making sure we can fit them into those 20-foot shipping containers, deploy them to a remote area, and then provide potable water, provide remote EV charging, all those life-saving features that would be essential for disaster recovery or just set up operations in remote areas. It's that plug-and-play capability and a systems approach that I think is really going to set us apart.
What was interesting is when we started Elysium Industries and started developing our molten salt reactor concept, one thing that we really prioritized was speed of deployment. How can we use commercial off-the-shelf components as much as possible to make sure that we can deploy this at a predictable cost as well, not just in terms of time frames. We looked at how can we run on spent nuclear fuel? How can we use waste stockpiles as our source of fuel? And in launching a proof of concept test where we started looking at the potential of taking used fuel and chlorinating that to put in our reactor, we realized that one, that test was successful at Idaho National Lab, but second of all, we were unlocking a business that we thought was going to be even more enormous, for which we can capture more of the value. And that was recycling. Because at the end of the day, it allows us to service the existing fleet by managing their spent fuel, but recycling it into materials that can be reused by the existing fleet. So we would love for advanced reactors to be successful. And in fact, we have an even better business case if advanced reactors are successful. But the shift was to make sure that there were not a whole lot of what ifs that controlled our success.
Of this liquid fuel or molten salt in fuel pan concept is we can tolerate, it's a very versatile fuel. So we can tolerate a lot in the fuel and the reactor will still operate safely. So what we do is we can take the existing waste used fuel that's currently stored at the reactor sites all around the world. We can process that in a fuel recycling facility and then reuse it in our reactor again. And so instead of putting that radioactive fuel in the ground where it'll be radioactive for 300,000 years, we can create more clean energy and reduce that waste. Instead of having long-lived waste at the end, we've got shorter, it's called intermediate level, low-level waste products at the end. So from what is like, let's say there's 100 tons of that high-level waste, we can turn 95 tons of it into intermediate level waste. It's basically the same radiation levels as uranium as it comes out of the ground. So we're really purifying that used fuel, extracting out the small amount of long-lived waste products in there and using them as fuel.
I helped turn basically big energy ideas into more real-world infrastructure. Over the last 30 plus years, I had the opportunity to lead and advise across the full spectrum of the life cycle of clean energy technologies, whether it's nuclear fission, fusion, hydrogen, renewables, and grid modernization. Now, through my consultancy, I work closely with developers, investors, regulators, and supply chain members. And that helps me bridge the critical gaps between feasibility, licensing, commercial strategy, and execution. So especially when we are trying to scale the small modular reactors SMR, which is becoming the latest features around advanced nuclear technologies. But there are lots of practical difficulties or challenges that I would like to bring to the site in this particular discussion and share my insight based on practical experience rather than just theoretical thought process that's coming into various startups.
This isn't just another conference, it's category-exclusive access to tomorrow's energy solutions. Dealflow Discovery Day, Nuclear Energy, May 22nd, 2025. Spaces are strictly limited. Secure yours now at dealflowdiscoverydays.com/nuclearenergy.